I'm Alan Weiss, and this is The Writing on the Wall. Welcome back to The Writing on the Wall. In the last episode, I talked about the fact that virtue has to be subsumed to talent. Talent has to out over virtue. So this episode is about false virtue losing to honest pragmatics. A woman in the legislature here in Rhode Island, about a month ago, introduced a bill. And the bill would ban the use of gas-powered mowers and leaf blowers and so on among all landscapers and gardeners, and demand that they'd have to be replaced by electric machines within the next 2 years. Now, the expense of doing this is tremendous, because if that bill passed, there'd be no market for the gas blowers and lawn mowers, and so they couldn't resell these things, and it's expensive to take on that much new equipment. These are big operations, and you're talking about small businesses. But the woman who introduced this did so as a virtue signal. She did no investigation of the costs, no investigation of the impact on the economy. And when she was questioned by some other legislators as to what the costs would be to replace these and what the impact would be on taxes and so forth, she had no clue. No clue. She says, I haven't looked into it that much. She was virtue signaling. And that's a problem. There's a theater here that starts a performance with one of the actors telling the audience, you should be aware that you're on land that was stolen from other people, and you should be aware that the wealth you have was developed on the backs of other people. Well, first of all, I don't believe that. And secondly, there's a problem when you feel that your personal theology has to be manifest through an entertainment organization to a captive audience. I asked the artistic director of another theater why he doesn't do that. And he said, there's no reason to do that. There's no place to do that. That's not the business we're in. There's legislation passed, especially in California, of course, demanding that minorities and women in certain representation be on all boards of all publicly held companies. Part of that's been knocked down by the courts. I mean, to what extent do you do this? Do you do it for short people, tall people, older people, younger people? To what extent can you dictate who sits on a board, irrespective of the pragmatics, that is, their competence? There's a ridiculous focus today on pronouns and preferences. Now, some of you are going to be irate at this, I understand, and you can write letters, but write them to Royce, don't write them to me. You'll get a better response. But when I get the parentheses after a name, you know, his, him, her, no, that would be his, him, he, I guess. I have to laugh, because these are people, basically, I'm not going to refer to in the third person. Am I supposed to keep a Rolodex of their preferred pronouns, especially when they're not common pronouns, like Z or something? What am I supposed to do with that? If I have to write them back, I put my own parentheses in. The parentheses say, the Prince and Your Eminence. Now, I'm not mocking anyone here. I think we all should have a better sense of humor. But this is virtue signaling. It doesn't change anything. And when somebody says to me, they didn't like what you said, I don't know if the person talking to me means an individual these days, or a group that was with me, or the entire organization. You can't even be sure anymore. It's not good enough today to be right. The other person has to be wrong. You can't agree to disagree. You can't say you have a good point, but no, I'm right, you're wrong. I have a higher moral plane. And that's moral narcissism. We can't reverse the past. Pull down all the statues you want. Rename whatever you want. You can't reverse the past, but you can learn from it. And that's what we seem to be failing to do, because we're separated, because we're polarized. If you're agnostic, if you're atheist, I understand, I really do. I can relate to that. But if you despise those who do have faith, I don't understand that at all. See, right, you have to be wrong. This is a pluralistic society. So no one's always ever right or ever wrong. Always right and always wrong. And the euphemisms distract meaning. They're not honest pragmatics. I heard about unhoused people the other day instead of homeless people. There's undocumented aliens instead of illegal aliens. These are just dumb distractions to hide us from the truth, which is we have to do something about the homeless. We have to do something intelligent about immigration. I mean, are rioters undocumented shoppers? Well, where does this end? Everything we do is contingent unless we change the schools. I believe that everything in society is contingent action unless we change the schools. Unions, the teachers' unions, are not only murdering the classroom, they're murdering teachers. Unless we change the schools, every kid who's poorly educated is a future possible social liability. Crime, addiction, homelessness, poverty, you name it. No kid should be treated that way. We have to change the schools as our moral obligation and stop talking about it. Stop virtue signaling. We need honest pragmatics. When you shout down speakers, I've got news for you, you're not in an institution of higher learning, you're in an institution of ignorance. If you can't listen to an opposing view without trying to shut it down, you don't have much intelligence going on for you. And when the school refuses to do anything, they've lost sight of their mission. California is broke. People are leaving California. They have a net decrease in population for the last several years. People are fleeing Los Angeles in big numbers. People are fleeing San Francisco in big numbers. Not only don't they have money, but because of that and because of bad policies, the cities are deteriorating. Yet a commission, thank God, a non-binding commission, came up with the recommendation of reparations for slavery. California had no slavery, of course, of $1 million per person who can prove they're descended from slaves. $1 million per person. It would cost the state 8 or 10 or 12 billion. I forget the exact number. Even the liberal governor in California has said he's not in favor of this, but the legislature would have to pass it, and that will never happen. So it looks like we're in a situation today where some legitimate causes, some needed causes, become movements. And then the movements become a theology. And that's not good even for the atheists.